Good evening. Another Q&A session for the Shape Up programs. You had a good week, Alice?
Yeah, not too bad.
Not
A
too
bit tired,
bad.
but we are muddling through. We're nearly there. I'm off this weekend, so we're just looking forward to that.
Nice, quiet weekend. I've just getting over this really cold that everybody's had. I had a day off work yesterday. I gave myself a day off, which I needed, and then back at it today. It's been a long one, but yeah,
Nearly
getting
there.
there, getting there slowly. Cool. All right. So you got anything nice planned for the weekend?
I'm going on spa day tomorrow,
Oh,
and
nice.
then out for like a big long walk on Sunday, like a big family group walk, and then out for a Sunday dinner. So
Perfect.
what a weekend!
It sounds good. We're having a quiet one. We've got a new takeaway slash restaurant, Greek
Ooh,
food that we're going to try this weekend, I think. So yeah,
very nice.
try some of those out and have a film night. Much needed quiet
Yeah,
night in.
sounds like it.
It's good. All right. You've got the questions from the check-in forms. And what was the one that we were going to look at? Give us one of them.
So we've got a couple. So we've got what like we had a couple of questions this week actually on the check-in forms about events, like corporate events,
Yeah,
being away with work, and how to track when you're not sure what's actually gone into the food. So when they serve like the pastries and coffees, like pre-made sandwiches at the buffets, like that kind of thing.
yeah.
How can you control like what you're eating, and how can you track that to make it fit with your goals basically? Um, was one of the ones, but I think we'd probably have sort of similar answers on this, but you can start with this one this week.
Okay. So tracking when you're eating out, I mean, it's difficult if you've not got the calories on the menus. Personally, um, I don't tend to track if we're eating out, if we're going for meals out. I kind of adopt a few different strategies. So if I'm eating out, I adopt kind of the first thing is mindful eating. So I'm conscious of kind of listening, taking my time over eating. I say listening, or just kind of, am I feeling full? Take my time, allow the body to catch up. And I think the key one there is asking yourself the question, what's the next mouthful going to give me that the last one didn't? And those sorts of, it's that strategy really. Am I full on the scale of kind of 1 to 10, where 10's absolutely stuffed to the point of being sick and 1 starving? We want to be kind of like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So, am I there and listening? But I mean, other strategies are things that always prioritize protein. So you
Mhm.
look at where's the protein sources. So I'll look for a good protein source. I'll look for things like the sauces on it. So, for example, if you're having a food that's got a creamy sauce, I might not go for something like that very often. That's kind of a one-off sort of thing.
Mm.
If it's a salad, I might ask for dressings on the side. If it's got something like a carb sauce, then I might sort of say, well, can I have less of that and maybe have a salad instead, or increase the veg portion? So there's different strategies you can get. If it's a fixed meal, then again, one of the things that I tend to do with that is almost it's there is a little bit of a bit of sort of research into the order that you eat food. So I tend to eat the protein first, I tend to have the veg, and then we'll have the carbohydrates towards the end because especially if it's a pasta dish, the carbs tend to be more calorific things. So I fill up on the protein and the veg first, and then I might have the carbs after. That also has an impact on kind of some of the hormones that control your appetite as well. I mean, this is like the finer details, but to be fair, protein first, then your veg, because you know that those are going to be the more bang for your buck in terms of filling for the amount of calories, and then I'll have the carbs after. And I'll listen to the body. If I'm full, if I'm satisfied, I'll leave it.
Yeah.
And then with regards to things like desserts, sorry, my watch is buzzing at me. I'll leave it. So with restaurants, it's good because you can they'll come to you and say, oh, do you want to order your dessert now? I might say, well, give it 10 minutes.
Yeah.
let the food go down, and I'm thinking, actually, I don't need dessert now. So that's a strategy there. But if you've got a buffet, then again, you're looking for your high protein, you're looking for your salads, and just being aware of kind of the foods that might contain a little bit more fat. So things like pastry, I tend to not avoid, but moderate my intake in those. I mean, I like a
Yeah.
good pastry, don't get me wrong. I do like pastries, but they tend to be, so if you're watching what you eat, things that have pastries or creamy sauces and stuff like that, I tend to kind of moderate my intake on those and maybe avoid them if I'm in a fat loss phase. Um, yeah, I think those are my basic sort of strategies, and then again using the hand portion guide and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah. And I think the other one that this is where, again, I know that we differ on like tracking apps, but this is where again I prefer NutriCheck, because stuff like the pastries that they serve at these things like teas and coffees, especially when you're quite new to tracking and you're not really sure what the calories are in foods, the NutriCheck's a really good one, because if you put something like a almond croissant, for example, in that, it will give you like the calories of like an average one.
Yeah,
A mini pastry, you can then be like, okay, well, it's not a whole one, so we'll count it as like a half or whatever, because you can just adjust the amounts, and then that will still give you a rough guide. So
yeah,
you can do them without tracking. That'll be the same with like the pre-made sandwiches and all of those things like the buffets, but there is a way that you can do it, if you do want to track. But equally, like you say, there's, if you don't want to be sat there trying to fully track, you have got the other methods, like I say, like the hand method, and just thinking about what you're having.
yeah.
Like on,
And I know the other thing that we've mentioned before as well is kind of calorie banking. So um, sort of thinking about saving the calories earlier on in the week, slightly reducing those so you've got a few more calories for the weekend to give you that kind of room, and maybe having lower calories earlier on in the day, so you've got a few more calories later, so you're not stressing too much. I mean, ultimately, what you've got to think is that if you do overconsume on one day for one meal, the impact is not going to be massive.
yeah,
Yes, your scale weight might go up, but that's not going to be fat. It'll be the volume of food in your stomach, and then water weight, water retention. So, if you have one meal like that, that's fine. Just get back onto the normal routine the next meal, and the impact on it is not going to be massive.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Which I guess leads you on to the next one of like, I know when we spoke about scale weight and plateaus, and then it's when the plateau finally, when you that ends, and then you do finally get that scale drop. It's then not focusing too much on that continuing, because one of them was, it's about then, right, plateau's done, that's it, scale weight's gone down, we're just going to focus on it keeping on dropping. Um, so I think, yeah, it's then, if you think about things like that, it's then remembering all of those reasons why it may still plateau, and try not to then get the tunnel vision again,
Yeah.
like, and not get caught up on that.
It's understanding that you will get, and we've said this, I think we said it last week, in that I've got a client whose pattern is 3 weeks out of every month, 3 weeks plateau, and then the drop comes in the last week. And there are so many reasons for that. It could be down to your cycle. It could just be down to the way your body responds to a calorie deficit. So again, yeah, don't get too hung up about that number. Be pleased that you're seeing the general trend over time. If the goal is fat loss and weight loss, then we're looking at that trend over time. And if it is going down, then great. One of the reasons why we get hung up on the scale weight is that we celebrate every loss.
Yeah.
And then when we see a gain, because we celebrate the loss, the opposite happens when we see a gain. We think, oh God, we've done something wrong. When actually, in real terms, you probably haven't. It's just the way your body responds. So just treat it as data. Yes, it's coming down. Look at the trend over time, and then understand if there is a pattern where we see a plateau, maybe a spike and then a drop. That's just the way your body responds. And if you see that pattern repeating, the next time it happens, you can go, oh, this is normal. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Remember, we said I think it was last week, that a plateau could be sort of 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of, right, are we tracking accurately? Have our steps dropped? Are we slipping into some of the old habits coming back in? Are we maybe having a few more snacks? Reassess what you're doing. And then if we need to make adjustments, we can make adjustments by upping the activity a little bit, to counteract the fact that we're going to be burning. Because that's the other thing. If you lose weight, you're going to burn fewer calories. There is less of you to burn those calories. You
Yeah.
know, and if you lose 10 kilos, it's roughly for every kilogram of body weight, you are going to burn around 20 to 24 calories. So if you lose 10 kilos, you are going to burn 200 to 240 calories less, which is half a pound of weight loss per week. So, you know, the weight loss will slow. If you lose 20 kilos and you were originally in that 500 calorie deficit, that deficit's gone now. So, yes, you are going to have to, but that is a lot of weight. So, if you've only lost 5 kilograms and it's plateaued, the chances are you're probably moving less, your
Mm-hmm.
tracking's not as accurate as it was before, you know, and some of those habits need to be reassessed and then go
Yeah.
again. So, yeah, just I think the main thing is don't celebrate the losses massively. Yes,
Yeah.
they're good, that's fine. But if you don't celebrate them massively, when you do see that fluctuation going up, it's not going to be too much of a bad thing. You're not going to sort of hit the sod it button.
Yeah. Which, like I said, that's what you want to avoid. And it's, yeah, don't get the tunnel vision on the scales. Like, think about like the other wins, like say, are your weight's going up in the gym? Like, are you able to move
Yeah.
more?
Are your
Those things.
measurements going down? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Those.
then, yeah, just try not to get too focused on the scales, I think, is the thing, because you will get the plateaus. And weight is such a, it's sensitive in itself, isn't it? Because it can go up and down like so quickly and for so many
Yeah.
different reasons. But it's actually not the most important one. It's
No.
just a really, like I say, really good measure of data. But there are other ways
Yeah.
and other.
And you know, and ultimately, I think we said it last week, is ultimately, you know, if you're given the choice of losing sort of say 15, 20 inches across all the body sites, but staying the same weight, and then losing 2 stone, but staying the same size,
Yeah.
you know, you go
Yeah.
for, you know, people want to feel better in the clothes. So the scale weight isn't that important. Yeah. So it's remembering that. All right. Any more questions from those check-ins?
No, the other ones I did note down, the other ones that you got through, we got through on social media as well, though. Got
Yeah.
them.
So I've had a couple really good ones from the socials. The first one is something I've been asked by clients as well who want to improve cardio fitness, they put it as, but actually what they mean is probably endurance and aerobic fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a couple of people sort of say this in terms of, you know, they're getting out of breath when they're going on long hikes and long walks. The strength's going up in the gym and they're enjoying the strength, but they want to be able to have that endurance so that they can push themselves a bit more in terms of other exercise, whether it be a CrossFit workout or long walk. The thing we've got to remember in terms of fitness, strength and aerobic fitness are two different forms. All right.
Yeah.
And CrossFit is a bit of it's a special case because you have that combination of strength and aerobic fitness, and you've got to train for both. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you've got a WOD, say, for example, where you're doing a ton of burpees, whoever wants to do a ton of burpees, I don't know, but hey ho. Um, so if you've got a WOD where you're doing lots of heavy lifting, but then you've also got sprints or burpees in there, then you have to train for that kind of cardio element of it as well. And there are different ways of doing it. I mean, we could do steady state cardio and that will improve your cardiovascular fitness, but it won't necessarily improve your aerobic fitness.
Yeah.
And what we've got to do is push yourself for that. So things like interval training is good. So it might be that you're on a bit of cardio kit, whether it's a rowing machine, a ski erg or a bike, or even your treadmill, and you're doing short bursts of very high intensity exercise and then longer bursts of slightly lower. So it could be, excuse me, my voice is going. It could be on a bike, you could go sprinting really, really, you know, max effort for say 10 to 15 seconds. And then you could do 30 to 45 seconds of easy effort. And you repeat it sort of 5 to 10 times. And the fitter you get, the more you could repeat it, or you could increase that max effort period. So as you're getting fitter, you might do 10 intervals of 15 seconds of max, 45 seconds of easy. And then you could try and increase it. So it could be 20, 40 or 30, 30. that is one way of increasing your cardiovascular and your aerobic fitness, because you're training your body to be more efficient at converting glucose into energy with oxygen, or even, you know, in the absence of oxygen, so your anaerobic fitness. But yeah, it's that kind of specific training. It's doing more of that alongside the weight. I mean, the one I got asked on social media is they felt that actually they'd be fitter if they lost weight, but they also know that if they're in a deficit, then the weight that they're lifting is going to drop as well.
Yeah.
And it's that balance. So you don't necessarily have to be in a deficit. Eat at maintenance, maintain your weight, strength train, because that's going to build muscle, but then include, I would say at the end of your strength workout, include that kind of interval training. That's a good way of increasing, you know, increasing your cardiovascular and aerobic fitness. And then with regards to diet, then it's making sure you fuel it. So protein, obviously, for your muscle building, and to make sure that you are giving your body the nutrients to repair after a workout, but then fueling it with carbs as well. And that's something that a lot of people are afraid of. They think, oh, carbs make me fat. But actually, a good carbohydrate source is going to fuel your workout so that you are going to have that energy, that sort of quick release energy to be able to do that kind of high intensity training. Yeah, so summarize, if you want to improve your aerobic fitness, train specifically for that. So interval training is good, high intensity interval training, or, you know, just go running, something like that is going to help with it, but keep the weight training up as well on the side. Okay. And then give it time, be patient, give it time. I think that's that one. Right. The other one, this is a good one. So there's loads of this one. So I'm going to read it out. So this basically this person asked about so they've seen a lot online. There's loads of stuff at the moment around kind of low carb, intermittent fasting, clean eating, keto, carnivore, all of this sort of stuff. And they sort of a particular person is Dr. Jason Fung. This guy's he promotes low carb and intermittent fasting. He specifically aims that at people who are diabetic, but he also sort of says generally this is something that people should be doing. The benefits that he kind of suggests, you will get the same benefits from calorie deficit. Ultimately, you know, if you are somebody who is pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, then fat loss is going to give you the benefits that, you know, cutting carbs out and intermittent fasting is going to give you. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, if you are type 2 diabetic and you are pre-diabetic, then you have to be conscious of the amount of carbohydrates you're eating. Yes, perhaps reducing them would be good. But if you aren't pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, then your body is going to be able to respond with, you know, to that. It's going to produce insulin, which will help your body control it. So this guy then goes on to say, regards to insulin spiking, is it true that carbs and sugar cause that? Yes, they do. But
They do.
that's a normal response. If you have carbohydrates, your insulin is going to go up. If it didn't, then you'd be in trouble. You'd probably be diabetic if it didn't. Then he says, but that leads to fat store buildup. No. So insulin is a hormone that it's basically a fuel selector. In the simplest term, it's a fuel selector. If your insulin's high, what it does is it switches your body to predominantly use carbohydrates as the fuel source. So if you've eaten a lot of carbohydrates, your blood sugar goes high, your body produces insulin, and it will say, right, any fats we're going to just park for the time being, and we're going to use the carbohydrates in the bloodstream. Once you've used those carbohydrates up, your insulin comes down, and then you will go into more fat burning. Now you'll still burn carbohydrates, but you will also burn fat at this point. Okay. Ultimately, though, if your goal is fat loss, then it's a calorie deficit. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't matter whether you are eating carbs and your insulin goes up. If you're in a deficit, your body at some point is going to use the body's fat stores
Yeah.
to make up that deficit. It's as simple as that. The other thing we've got to remember as well is that if you eat protein, protein causes an insulin spike. It does. So, you're not going to cut out protein as well just to avoid that insulin spike, because we need protein. It's an essential macronutrient. We need it for the body. So don't worry if you are perfectly healthy. If you've not got diabetes or pre-diabetes, then you do not need to worry about insulin spiking. It's a natural response for the body. If the goal's fat loss, calorie deficit is it. How you achieve that is up to you, whether you want to track, whether you want to monitor your portion sizes, whether you want to skip breakfast or eat within a time restricted window, whether you want to cut out carbs or whatever works for you. But as I always say to people, what you've got to remember is how you achieve your results, you need to be able to do long term to maintain those results. So if cutting carbs is hard work, when you achieve your results and the carbs come back in, if you've not learned how to moderate them, then you ain't going to maintain those results. Yeah. So you don't need to.
Yeah.
So he then goes on to sort of say, I enjoy food. I don't want to limit myself. Good.
Yeah.
To only eating raw products. That I think they mean unprocessed products. The whole narrative on packaged or processed is bad. Surely, if you're eating well but balanced and choosing the healthier options along with exercise, you will see results. Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
There's nothing else I can add there. If you've got a balanced diet, you know, predominantly eating minimally processed foods, and I'll talk about processed foods in a second. If you say 80% of your diet is whole or minimally processed foods, 20% of your diet is more of the fun stuff, and you're in a deficit and you're exercising, then yes, you will see results. You don't need to resort to anything extreme. He's put just before he says, before I thought healthy was drinking protein, eating good lean meat, fat-free yogurts, good fruits, salads, porridge oats. Now it's like anything low fat or packaged is wrong, and you should only eat this way. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Spot, it's not it's not sustainable.
It's absolutely not.
No, I mean we've said this before. Now there's lots of stuff. So processed food, ultimately, it is virtually impossible to eliminate processed food.
Yeah.
You know, processed foods are not inherently bad. Obviously, the more processed the food is, then you want to try and moderate your intake. If your diet is 80-90% highly processed food, then you are the main issue there is that they are calorie dense and you're going to be over consuming calories. So that's why we would want to kind of moderate them. All those ingredients that people worry about, like emulsifiers, gums and stuff like that, on their own, they are not bad. It's the poison is in the dose. If your diet is predominantly ultra processed, then there are going to be negative effects because we're not getting enough of the micronutrients in there. If you can moderate that so it's only sort of 15 to 20% of your diet, then that's going to be better, as long as the rest of it is minimally processed. So, the veg that you buy, if you buy broccoli in a packet, that is processed because they've trimmed it, they'll have packaged it in a package that has got an inert gas in there. It's been the meat. If you go and buy packaged meat, again, that's processed. If you go and get Greek yogurt is actually an ultra processed food.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with it, and whether it's full fat or fat free, they're made in the same way. It's just one's made from full fat milk, the other one's made from skim milk. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with fat free yogurt. Do we need fats in the diet? Yes. But we want unsaturated fats predominantly from sources like oily fish. We want it from things like avocados, nuts, seeds, those sorts of things. We do need some saturated fats. So, milk is a good source. Obviously cheese to a certain degree, but again, be conscious of the amount that you have. But yeah, it's just avoiding this whole clean eating. And we were saying before we jumped on the call is that orthorexia, if you're not sure what orthorexia is, Google it. It's actually an eating disorder in itself. It is the obsession over only eating clean, in inverted commas, food, unprocessed food. If you're stressing over whether you should be eating food because it's processed or not,
Yeah.
that's going to cause more issues with you long term than, just
Yeah.
enjoying the food. It's I have a real issue, and I think you share this opinion as well, a real issue with people pushing this whole, can't eat processed food. Yes, we need to reduce the amount in our diet. Yes, we should prioritize fruit and veg, lean protein, minimally processed food. Absolutely. That is the way to go.
Yeah.
But stressing over whether you've had, a bit of chocolate or, I mean, life would be miserable. If you can't enjoy a cookie or a piece of cake, life is going to be bloody miserable.
Yeah, and I think that's, and like you say, it's being smart. Like I think we've said on ones before, like we're all adults. Like everyone can make their own decision on what they want to eat, and ultimately, yes, if you're eating a box of 12 donuts every single day, like no, that's not going to help your body. But if you're having one donut, every now and then, it's not going to
Yeah.
impact you in a detrimental way. There's far worse things you could be doing, um, than eating enjoying a bit of cake. And I think it's, circling back around to like the skipping breakfast thing. It doesn't benefit the body in a sense of changing it from its fat burning state or any of that. It's just another way to keep calorie deficit because you're shortening your window that you're eating in.
Yeah.
All of these new things that come out that sound like they're reinventing the wheel, like they're absolutely not. At the end of the day, they all just boil down to being a calorie deficit.
Yeah. Exactly. That's all they do. I mean, there's a big thing about autophagy, which is a phrase that's thrown around. Autophagy is effectively it's just the body kind of getting rid of the breakdown products of from cells and clearing out. Okay.
Mm.
They use the word detoxifying, which is just a made up term in itself.
Yeah.
You get the same effect by being in a calorie deficit. Autophagy is also caused by just being in a calorie deficit. So, there's no, if having, and I've used intermittent fasting with clients because if having a rule where you only eat between a certain time is going to stop you from, say, snacking in the evening,
Yeah.
then great, use it. If that's something that works for you, use it. Personally, I don't have breakfast on a Sunday because I know I'm going to have a big Sunday dinner. So I use that as a strategy to manage calories. Is it going to put my body in a better fat burning state? No, it's just a way for me to manage calories. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all it is. Um, so if you want to do it, do it. But if you like breakfast, if you need breakfast first thing in the morning, now I generally do in the week. I have my breakfast quite early, and it keeps me going till lunch. Then eat it. If you don't like eating breakfast, don't eat it.
Yeah.
It's like you say, we're adults, we can choose. But ultimately, it's about prioritize your protein. So make sure you've got protein in every meal. Get your fruit and veg in. So 1 to 2 portions of fruit and veg with every single meal. I sort of say, maybe make one of your snacks a piece of fruit as well, so you get extra fruit and veg in there. Healthy carbs, complex carbs, so rice, pasta, whole grains, that sort of stuff is good. And then healthy fats. Yes, things like low fat yogurt help you reduce your calories, but don't avoid fat at all costs. You do need some in there. So, nuts and seeds, I'll add chia seeds to my overnight oats. That's a good source of healthy fats. Avocados, I'll use things like olive oil when I'm cooking. I'll add some nuts and stuff if I'm having salads or stir fries. There's good sources, oily fish as well. I try and get oily fish in a couple of times a week if I can. But it's just about balance. And then and we've said before, we both enjoy chocolate, and I will have a piece of chocolate most days, if not every day. If you enjoy it, include it in there. It's a lot easier to manage if you allow yourself that food than it is if you kind of cut it out because you're going to crave it. But yeah, I think that answers everything on that one. The only other question I got was actually from a client today. Other than creatine, what supplements do you recommend? And I think we discussed this last week, but I'm going to just sort of recap it again. What's our approach on supplements, Alice?
Most of them are just another way to make money, but there are a couple that are really beneficial. I think we take the same every day. Omega-3s, vitamin D,
Yeah,
and obviously are sort of the main ones.
yeah,
Because I know we discussed about like protein powder, not really, that's not a supplement. I know a lot of people sort of see it in that way. So if you do see it in that way, then yes, include it if you are trying to increase your protein
yeah.
and you're struggling with, other food sources, then absolutely. But otherwise, the only ones you really need to be taking are your vitamin D, omega-3s, and creatine.
Creatine, yeah. I mean, it may well be that if you have a blood test and
Yeah,
they identify that you are deficient in something, then it could be that you might need to take iron if you're iron deficient or anemic. It might be that you need to take maybe a vitamin B supplement if there are certain vitamin Bs vitamin B is a complex. There's lots of different ones, so it might be that they say yes, you're deficient in a particular one, so you can take that, you can add it in.
yeah,
If your fruit and veg intake is not particularly high and you struggle to get it in, then maybe a vitamin C supplement could help as well. But yeah, generally, magnesium's another one potentially. So quite a few people are magnesium deficient, so maybe a magnesium supplement for some can help. But in terms of that, if you're not sure, go to your doctors and ask for a blood test, and
yeah,
they can sort of tell you where you're deficient. The one thing I would say that in the northern hemisphere, in the UK, most of us, especially at this time of year, we just don't get enough sunlight, and it's not easy to get enough in your diet. So a vitamin D supplement is definitely recommended. Something like 1,000 IU, which is, if I remember correctly, is 25 micrograms.
yeah.
But that is a basic starting point. But go and ask your doctor for a vitamin D level test, and they'll give you some advice on that. But yeah, creatine, vitamin D, omega-3, and then the other stuff.
If you
And
need,
then yeah, and again with the protein powders, it just as a recap, like you say, it's something that if you are struggling to get enough protein in, it's great. And actually, it's a cheap source. So I know that people kind of go, "Oh, protein powder's expensive." It's about, if you shop around, it's about 40 quid for 2 kilograms. 2 kilograms gives you 80 portions, 80 20-gram portions of protein. That or 25 grams portions of powder, which gives you 20 grams of protein. That works out at 50p per portion.
yeah,
It's the cheapest source of protein. I mean, if you equate it with chicken breasts are worked out to about 75 to 80p, and then the rest is, other protein sources become more expensive
yeah,
for the same amount of protein. So if you are struggling, yes, it can be 40 quid as an upfront cost, but it lasts.
yeah,
It takes it lasts for a long time. And actually, a scoop of protein in with your porridge oats, or in a smoothie, or just in a shake to boost your protein intake, it's the cheapest way of doing it. So if you need to use it, if not, if you don't want to avoid it, then you don't like it, then don't have it. But you need to be more conscious about what you're taking in. And then the other thing I think as well is I was asked, how much protein do you really need to take? And we'll end on this one. So you'll get a lot of influencers saying 2 grams of protein per 2.2 grams or 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, or 1 gram per pound. All right. Most of us do not need to be taking that much. Absolutely not. Um, the best, ideally, what we need is about 1.2 grams. So for anybody under the age of 40, about 1.2 grams per kilogram of your goal weight. That's the easiest way of doing it. And then as we're getting older, our protein intake can actually increase. Our protein requirements can increase. So for particularly women going through perimenopause, it's about 1.5 grams per kilogram goal weight. And again, as you get older, about that sort of amount as well. If you're trying to build muscle, again, 1.5 grams per kilo of lean body mass, or your goal weight's a good amount. And then if you are trying to sort of maintain muscle and you're lean, So if anybody's out there who's listening going, actually, I'm trying to shred for a photo shoot or something, trying to maintain my lean muscle tissue, then yeah, you might need to eat up to that 2 grams per kilo. But really, it's bodybuilders that need that 2 grams plus per kilo. For the vast majority of us,
Yeah.
anywhere between 1.2 to 1.5, 1.6 grams per kilogram of your goal body weight. That's what you need. So for most women, 100 to 120 grams is plenty. You know, if you've got a coach who's getting you on 150, 160 grams, review it. Just double check that that's the right amount. You know, you don't always need to eat. I mean, it's not, but if you do eat that amount and it's easy, then it's not going to be bad for you. But if you're struggling to eat that amount and you're stressing about it, just review your goals. You know, it's 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of your goal body weight is a good amount. Yeah, I think that's everything. Cool. Some good questions there, particularly that one on clean eating. That's a big one at the moment. So I hope that sort of information and advice has helped people. If you've got any more questions on that, please just get in touch. Send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, Fit a Food Lover. We can always sort of get back to you. Cool. All right, Alice, I will let you go and get ready for your nice quiet weekend.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've got a few things to do first. Got to have dinner.
Yeah,
So,
same. Snap. Burgers for tea tonight. What are you having?
like a little vegetable pie type thing, like a puff pastry,
Ooh, nice.
broccoli style. Very nice. Yeah.
Very
Can't
nice. Yeah.
wait.
We've got burgers. We've got low fat burgers and some air fried chips. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Go and
Friday
enjoy.
night takeaway. Will do. All right, Alice, I'll speak to you again same time next week.
Catch up then.
All right. See you later, guys. Bye.